In a small village hugged by green hills and a wide rushing river, there lived an old man named Bilal. He wasn't rich or important, but everyone knew him because of his dog, Cheru. Cheru was a scruffy little thing, brown fur patchy from years of running through thorns, one ear flopped over, and big, sad eyes that seemed to carry a story of their own. The two were inseparable, like shadows stitched together by time. Every evening, when the sun dipped low and painted the sky orange, Bilal would grab his worn-out walking stick, and Cheru would bounce around his feet, tail wagging like a metronome. Together, they'd head to the riverbank, a quiet spot where the water gurgled over smooth stones and the wind whispered through the tall grass. Bilal wasn't always alone. Years ago, he'd had a wife, Noor, whose laughter used to fill their little mud-brick house, and a son, Hassan, who'd chase Cheru around the yard with a stick and a grin. But life had a way of taking things away. Noor got sick one winter, her cough turned into silence, and she was gone before the snow melted. Hassan, barely a man at 18, left to find work in the city and never came back. A letter arrived once, saying he'd drowned in a factory accident, but Bilal never saw a body to bury. All he had left was Cheru, who'd been Hassan's puppy first, a gift for his 10th birthday. Now Cheru was old too, his muzzle graying, his steps slower, but his love for Bilal never faded. That river walk was their ritual. Bilal would sit on a flat rock, watching the water ripple and sparkle, while Cheru sniffed around, chasing frogs or barking at the fish that darted under the surface. Sometimes, Bilal talked to him. "You're a good boy, Cheru," he'd say, his voice rough but soft, better than most people. Cheru would tilt his head, as if he understood, then bark, a sharp, happy sound that echoed across the river. It was their little world, a bubble of peace in a life that had seen too much loss. The village wasn't big, just a cluster of houses with tin roofs, a dusty road and a mosque with a crooked minaret. The people were kind but kept to themselves. They'd nod at Bilal as he passed, Cheru trotting beside him, and some of the kids would toss the dog a scrap of bread or a pat on the head. But no one joined them on their walks. The river had a reputation. Old folks said it was cursed, that it swallowed people who got too close. There were stories, whispers about shadows in the water, about fishermen who vanished, about strange noises at night. Bilal didn't believe them. Just tales to scare kids, he'd mutter to Cheru, who'd wag his tail like he agreed. One evening, though, something felt different. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of wet earth, and something sour, like rotting leaves. The sky was bruised with dark clouds, and the wind carried a chill that made Bilal pull his shawl tighter. Cheru noticed it too. His ears perked up, and he stopped wagging his tail. They reached the river as usual, but the water looked darker, almost black, moving faster than it should have. Bilal sat on his rock, rubbing his hands together for warmth, while Cheru paced along the bank, sniffing the air. "What's wrong, boy?" Bilal asked, frowning. Cheru didn't bark back like he usually did. Instead, he froze, staring at the water, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Bilal stood, his knees creaking, and shuffled over to see what had spooked him. The river was loud that night, roaring like it was angry. He squinted into the darkness, but all he saw were shadows, trees swaying, water churning. "Nothing there," he said, patting Cheru's head. "Come on, let's go home." But Cheru didn't move. His growl turned into a bark, sharp, urgent, the kind he used when strangers came too close to the house. Bilal's stomach twisted. He hadn't heard Cheru bark like that in years. "Cheru, enough," he snapped, but the dog ignored him. He barked again, louder, his body tense, eyes locked on the river. Bilal grabbed his collar, tugging gently. "Let's go, boy. It's getting cold." Cheru resisted, planting his paws in the mud, barking over and over until his voice cracked. Bilal sighed, tired and a little annoyed. "Fine, stay if you want," he said, turning to walk back alone. He figured Cheru would follow eventually. He always did. But this time Cheru didn't. Bilal made it halfway up the path, his stick tapping the ground, when he realized the barking hadn't stopped. It was louder now, echoing through the village, cutting through the night like a knife. He turned back, his heart thudding. Cheru was still by the river, a small frantic shape against the dark water, barking like his life depended on it. Bilal hesitated. Something about the sound, the desperation in it made his chest ache. He called out, "Cheru, come here," but the wind swallowed his voice. Then came a silence. The barking stopped, sudden and sharp, like someone had flipped a switch. Bilal froze, straining to hear. Nothing, just the river's roar and his own breathing. "Cheru," he called, softer this time, his throat tight. No answer. He started back toward the river, his steps slow, dread creeping up his spine. When he reached the bank, Sheru was gone. The rock was empty, the grass still, the water rushing like it was laughing at him. Bilal's knees buckled. He sank to the ground, clutching his stick, his eyes darting over the river bank. "Sheru," he whispered, voice breaking. Back at the village, the barking started again. Raw, relentless. Sheru had run home alone, leaving Bilal behind, and now he stood by the river's edge near their house, howling into the night. The villagers peeked out their windows, muttering to each other, "What's wrong with that dog?" They said, "Where's Bilal?" No one knew. Sheru kept barking, his voice tearing through the quiet, a cry that held something deeper, fear, loyalty, maybe a warning. And somewhere out there, by the river, Bilal was gone, swallowed by the night, leaving only questions and a loyal friend who wouldn't stop calling for him. The night swallowed Bilal, but Sheru wouldn't let it rest. Back in the village, the little brown dog stood by the river's edge near their mud brick house, barking into the dark. His voice cut through the quiet like a blade, sharp, raw, and endless. The villagers tucked in their beds, stirred at the sound. At first they grumbled, pulling blankets over their heads. "That stupid dog," muttered old Fatima from her window, her gray hair tangled from sleep. "Why won't he shut up?" But as the hours dragged on, the grumbling turned to whispers. Something wasn't right. Sheru said barks weren't normal. They weren't the happy yaps he made when Bilal tossed him a bone or the warning growls for strangers. This was different, desperate, like he was screaming for help. His small body trembled as he stood in the mud, paws sinking into the wet earth, his sad eyes fixed on the river. The water roared louder than usual, a deep, angry sound that made the ground hum. The villagers couldn't ignore it anymore. Lanterns flickered to life, casting yellow glows across the dirt paths as people stepped outside, shawls wrapped tight against the cold dot. Ali was the first to reach him. He was a skinny boy, barely 12, with messy hair and a chipped front tooth from falling off a cart last summer. He loved Sheru, used to sneak him bits of roti when Bilal wasn't looking. "Sheru," he called, running barefoot down the path, his voice high and worried. The dog didn't turn. He kept barking, his throat rasping with every sound, like it hurt him to keep going. Ali knelt beside him, reaching out a small hand. "Hey boy, what's wrong? Where's Uncle Bilal?" Sheru's fur was damp, matted with mud, and his tail hung limp. He didn't wag it, didn't even look at Ali. He just barked, over and over, staring at the black water dot. The boy's stomach twisted. He'd seen Bilal and Sheru leave for their walk earlier, same as always. But now Sheru was alone, and Bilal was nowhere. Ali glanced at the river, its surface rippling under the moonless sky. It looked alive, like it was breathing, waiting. He shivered, pulling his thin shirt closer. "Come on, Sheru," he said, tugging the dog's scruffy neck. "Let's go home. Uncle will come back." But Sheru wouldn't budge. His paws dug deeper into the mud, and when Ali pulled harder, the dog snapped, teeth flashing, a low growl rumbling out. Ali stumbled back, eyes wide. Sheru had never done that before. By now, a small crowd had gathered. Men with lanterns, women clutching their scarves, kids peeking from behind their parents, all staring at the little dog who wouldn't stop. "Where's Bilal?" asked Riman, the blacksmith, his voice gruff. He was a big man, hands scarred from the forge, but even he looked uneasy. "He's never late," and Sheru's acting possessed. The word hung in the air, possessed. No one laughed. The old stories crept into their minds, the ones about the river, and the things it hid. Fatima shuffled forward, her cane tapping the ground. "I told him," she croaked. "That river's cursed, takes what it wants." Ali shook his head. "He's just lost, Auntie. We'll find him." But his voice wobbled, and he didn't sound sure. He knelt by Sheru again, softer this time. "Please, Sheru, tell me what happened." The dog's bark slowed for a moment, turning into a whine. A long, broken sound that made Ali's chest hurt. Sheru pawed at the mud, frantic, like he was trying to dig something up. Ali looked down and froze. There, half buried in the wet earth, was a piece of cloth. He pulled it free, hands shaking. It was Bilal's shawl, gray, frayed, the one he always wore. It was torn, soaked, and smelled like the river. "Uncle's shawl," Ali gasped, holding it up. The crowd pressed closer, murmuring. Riman took it, turning it over in his big hands. "He wouldn't leave this," he said quietly. "Not on purpose." Fatima crossed her arms, her wrinkled face tight. "The river took him. Mark my words." Ali wanted to argue, but the words stuck in his throat. Sharoo started barking again, louder, his voice cracking like he was begging them to listen. Ali's eyes filled with tears. "He's out there," he whispered. "Sharoo knows." The night stretched on, cold and heavy. The villagers tried everything to stop Sharoo. They offered him food, bits of meat, a bowl of rice, but he ignored it. They shouted, clapped their hands, even threw a pebble to scare him off. Nothing worked. His barks grew hoarse, his small body swaying from exhaustion, but he wouldn't move. He stood there, a lonely guard by the river, calling into the void. Ali stayed too, sitting cross-legged in the mud, the shawl clutched in his lap. He didn't care that his mother would scold him for ruining his clothes. He couldn't leave Sharoo alone. As dawn crept in, gray and weak, the barking didn't stop. The villagers drifted back to their homes, tired and shaken, but Ali wouldn't go. He watched Sharoo, whose eyes never left the water, and felt a chill that wasn't just the morning air. The river looked different now, darker, deeper, like it was hiding something horrible. Ali remembered Bilal's stories, the ones he'd laughed at, about a fisherman who heard voices in the waves, about a shadow that pulled a boy under. He'd thought they were just tales. Now he wasn't sure. "Sharoo," he said, voice small, "what did you see?" The dog whined again, a sound so sad it broke Ali's heart. Then he barked once more, sharp and loud, and ran toward the riverbank, stopping just before the water. He pawed at the edge, mud flying, his cries echoing over the village. Ali stood, clutching the shawl, tears streaming down his face. "We'll find him," he promised, though he didn't know how. Sharoo's barking filled the air, endless and haunting, a loyal cry for a friend who might never come back, and a warning of something waiting in the river's depths. The sun barely broke through the gray clouds that morning, casting a dull light over the village. Sharoo's barking had gone on all night, a relentless cry that wore down the villagers' nerves, and left Ali sleepless, clutching Bilal's torn shawl. By now the little dog's voice was a ragged scrape, but he wouldn't stop. He stood by the riverbank, near the house, mud caked on his paws, his sad eyes locked on the water. Ali sat beside him, his knees pulled up, staring at the same dark ripples. He couldn't shake the feeling that Sharoo knew something bad. "We have to find him," Ali said, his voice small but firm. He stood, brushing mud off his pants, and turned to the crowd of villagers who'd gathered again. Their faces were tired, worried, etched with lines of doubt. Rimmon the blacksmith rubbed his scarred hands together, his broad shoulders hunched. "The boy's right," he said gruffly. "Bilal's not the type to wander off. Something's happened." Fatima snorted, leaning on her cane. "I told you, the river's got him. You'll see." But Ali shook his head, clutching the shawl tighter. "He's alive. Sharoo wouldn't bark like this if he wasn't." The decision was made. They'd search the river. Rimmon fetched a small wooden boat from his shed, its paint chipped but sturdy enough. A few men, as if the shopkeeper and Karim, a farmer, volunteered to go. Ali insisted on joining, ignoring his mother's protests. "I'm not a baby," he snapped, his chipped tooth flashing as he spoke. "Sharoo needs me." His mother sighed, her eyes red, but she let him go. Sharoo, though, didn't wait for permission. He bolted toward the river, leaping into the shallow edge with a splash, his barks echoing as he swam. "Where's he going?" Ali asked, frowning as he climbed into the boat. Ali pointed across the water. There, in the middle of the river, sat a small island, just a lump of dirt and trees, barely visible through the morning mist. Sharoo was heading straight for it, his small head bobbing above the waves. The men rowed hard, the boat creaking under their weight, while Ali leaned forward, gripping the edge. His heart pounded. The river felt alive, its current tugging at the boat like greedy hands. The water was cold, dark, and smelled wrong, sharp and bitter, like something dead. Sharoo reached the island first, scrambling onto the muddy shore. His barks turned frantic, high-pitched, as he pawed at the ground. The boat bumped against the edge, and Ali jumped out before it stopped, splashing through the shallows. "Sharoo, wait," he called, his voice cracking. The dog didn't listen. He darted toward a cluster of twisted trees, their branches bare and sharp like claws. The men followed, lanterns swinging, their boots sinking into the soft earth. The island was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no wind, just the river's distant roar, and Sharoo's cries. Ali caught up to Sharoo near the trees. The dog was digging, mud flying, his whines mixing with barks. "What is it, boy?" Ali asked, dropping to his knees. He pushed the dirt aside with his hands, and then he saw it, a hat. Bilal's hat. It was old faded green, the one he wore every day. But it wasn't right. The brim was torn, the fabric soaked and heavy with water. Ali held it up, his fingers trembling. "Uncle's hat," he whispered. Sheroo nosed it, whimpering, then barked again, louder, his eyes darting to the trees. Rimmon took the hat, turning it over. "He was here," he said, his voice low. "But where is he now?" Kareem stepped closer, his lantern casting shaky light. "Look at this place. It's dead. Nothing grows right." He was right. The island felt wrong. The trees were black and gnarled, their roots twisting into the ground, like they were choking it. The air was thick, hard to breathe, and the smell from the river clung to everything. Ali Sif kicked at the mud. Maybe he fell in. The current's strong. "No," Ali said, shaking his head. "Sheroo wouldn't bark for nothing. He's here somewhere." He looked at the dog, who'd stopped digging, and was now staring at the water's edge, growling low. The men spread out, searching the small island. It wasn't big, just a few trees, some bushes, and a rocky shore. But every step felt heavy, like the ground didn't want them there. Ali stayed with Sheroo, holding the hat tight. "You saw him, didn't you?" he murmured. "What happened?" Then Kareem shouted, "Over here." The men rushed to the shore, where the farmer stood pointing at a bush. Caught in its thorny branches was another clue, a strip of cloth, gray and frayed. Ali's breath caught. It matched Bilal's shawl. He ran over, pulling it free. It was wet, cold, and his heart stopped, stained with something dark, red, blood. "No," he whispered, dropping to his knees. Sheroo whined beside him, nosing the cloth, his barks turning to soft broken cries. Rimmon crouched, his big hand on Ali's shoulder. "Could be mud," he said, but his voice wasn't sure. Ali Sif shook his head. "That's blood. I've seen enough cuts in my shop." Fatima's words echoed in Ali's mind. The river's cursed. He didn't want to believe it, but the hat, the cloth, the blood, they painted a picture he couldn't ignore. "He's hurt," Ali said, tears stinging his eyes. "We have to keep looking." Sheroo barked again, sharp and urgent, and ran to the water's edge. He stood there, paws in the shallows, staring across the river. The men followed his gaze, but the mist was thick, hiding the far bank. "What's he seeing?" Kareem asked, gripping his lantern. Ali wiped his face, standing up. "He knows where Uncle is. We have to follow him." But the boat was small, the river fast, and the island felt like a trap closing in. The air grew colder, the shadows longer, and Sheroo's barks echoed like a warning they couldn't understand. Ali clutched the hat and the bloody cloth, his chest tight with fear and hope. Sheroo wouldn't stop. He'd lead them to Bilal, no matter what waited in the river's depths. But as the men prepared to row again, a sound drifted from the water, a low wet growl that wasn't the wind. Ali froze, Sheroo growled back, and the search took a turn toward something darker, something horrible, that none of them were ready for. The small island in the river felt like a grave. The air was thick, pressing down on Ali and the men, as they stood by the water's edge, staring into the mist. Sheroo's growls rumbled low, his scruffy fur bristling, as he faced the river. The sound they'd heard, that wet guttural growl, had faded, but it left a chill that clung to their bones. Ali held Bilal's torn hat, and the bloody strip of cloth, his small hands shaking. The blood was real, dark and sticky, not mud like Rimmon had hoped. It meant Bilal was hurt, maybe worse. Ali's throat tightened, but he swallowed the tears. Sheroo needed him to be strong. "We can't stop," Ali said, his voice trembling but loud enough for the men to hear. "Uncle's out there. Sheroo knows it." The dog barked once, sharp and fierce, as if agreeing. Rimmon nodded, his big hands tightening on the oar. "All right, boy, let's keep looking." Alif and Kareem exchanged glances, their faces pale, but they didn't argue. The island was small, and they'd already checked the trees and bushes. Whatever had happened to Bilal, the clues pointed back to the river, or beyond it. Sheroo's eyes never left the water, his growls mixing with whines, like he was torn between fear and loyalty. They spread out again, moving slowly along the muddy shore. The ground sucked at their boots, wet and cold, and the mist curled around them like fingers. Ali stayed close to Sheroo, his lantern swinging as he walked. The light barely cut through the haze, casting jittery shadows that made the trees look alive. He tried to focus, to push away the panic clawing at his chest. Bilal had to be okay. He was tough, tougher than anyone Ali knew. He'd survived losing his wife, his son. He couldn't be gone now. Not like this. Sharoo stopped suddenly, his paws sinking into the mud near a cluster of rocks. He sniffed the ground, then started digging, his barks turning frantic. Ali dropped to his knees beside him, setting the lantern down. "What is it, boy?" he asked, his voice high with hope and dread. Mud flew as Sharoo clawed at the earth, his whines piercing the quiet. Ali joined in, digging with his hands, ignoring the cold slime that coated his fingers. Then he felt something hard, smooth, buried shallow. He pulled it free, and held it up to the light. It was a shoe. Bilal's shoe. Ali's breath caught. The old leather was scuffed, the sole worn thin from years of walking. One lace was missing, just like Bilal's always was. He'd never bothered to replace it. But the shoe was wet, heavy with river water, and the inside was stained dark. More blood. Ali's hands shook as he turned it over, a sob escaping his lips. "Uncle," he whispered, clutching it to his chest. Sharoo nosed the shoe, whimpering, then barked again, louder, his eyes darting to the ground. Rimmon jogged over, his lantern swaying. "What'd you find?" he asked, then saw the shoe. His face hardened. "That's his all right." He took it from Ali, inspecting it with a frown. No way he'd leave this behind. Not unless. He didn't finish, but Ali knew what he meant. Unless something dragged him away. Asif and Kareem joined them, their lanterns casting a weak glow. Another clue. Asif muttered, kicking at the mud. "But it's all pointing to the water." Then Kareem gasped, pointing at the ground where Sharoo had dug. "Look." Ali turned, his heart pounding. There, in the mud, were prints' prints but not Sharoo's. These were bigger, deeper with long claw marks that stretched out like fingers. They weren't dog tracks, they weren't anything normal. Sharoo growled at them, his small body trembling, his sad eyes wide with something like fear. Ali traced the prints with a shaky finger. What made these?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Rimmon crouched, his big frame tense. Too big for a wolf, too strange for anything around here. He followed the prints with his eyes. They led from the rocks to the water's edge, disappearing into the shallows. Kareem stepped back, gripping his lantern tight. "The old stories," he said, his voice shaking. "My grandfather said the river had a beast, something that walks like a man, but isn't, takes people, leaves marks like that." Asif snorted, but it sounded forced. "That's nonsense. Probably just a bear or something." "A bear with claws like this," Rimmon snapped, pointing at the prints. The claw marks were sharp, curved, almost human but too long, too wrong. Ali's stomach twisted. He remembered Bilal laughing at those stories, calling them fairy tales. But now, with the hat, the bloody cloth, the shoe, and these prints, Ali wasn't laughing. Sharoo barked again, sharp and angry, his gaze fixed on the river. The mist swirled, thicker now, and the water seemed to growl back, a low wet sound that made the men freeze. "We need to go," Asif said, his voice tight. "This place isn't safe." But Ali shook his head, tears spilling down his cheeks. "No, we can't leave, Uncle. Sharoo's telling us, he's out there." He pointed at the water, where the prints vanished. Rimmon put a hand on his shoulder, gentle but firm. "We'll come back, Ali, with more men, more light. We can't fight what we don't understand." Ali wanted to scream, to run into the river himself, but he knew Rimmon was right. They were just 4 people, 1 boy, and a tired dog against something they couldn't name. Sharoo wouldn't move. He stood by the prints, barking at the water, his voice hoarse and breaking. Ali knelt beside him, burying his face in the dog's muddy fur. "We'll find him, Sharoo," he sobbed. "I promise." The men pulled the boat closer, their faces grim. As they climbed in, Ali looked back at the island, the twisted trees, the muddy shore, the claw marks. The river roared louder, like it was laughing, and the mist hid whatever watched from the other side. The boat pushed off, Sharoo's barks echoing behind them. Ali clutched Bilal's shoe, the bloody cloth, and the hat, his heart heavy with fear and guilt. The strange prints burned in his mind, horrible, impossible, a clue to something worse than he'd imagined. Sharoo knew. Sharoo had seen it, and as the island faded into the fog, Ali felt the river's eyes on them, waiting for their next move. The boat rocked gently as it pulled away from the island, the river's dark water lapping at its sides. Ali sat at the back, clutching Bilal's hat, the bloody cloth, and the worn shoe, his small hands trembling. Sharoo stood beside him, his muddy fur dripping, his barks fading into rough, tired whines. The men Rimmon, Asif and Kareem rowed in silence, their faces tight with unease. The strange claw marks in the mud haunted them, those long, twisted tracks that didn't belong to any animal they knew. The mist thickened around the boat, swallowing the island until it was just a shadow, but Ollie felt it watching them. The river felt alive, hungry, and the air grew colder as the sun sank below the hills. "We'll come back tomorrow," Riemann said, his voice low, breaking the quiet. "More men, more light, we'll find him, Ollie." But his words sounded hollow, like he didn't believe them. Asif nodded, his eyes darting to the water. "Yeah, tomorrow. This place, it's not right at night." Karim said nothing, just gripped his oar tighter, his knuckles white. Ollie didn't answer. He stared at Shiru, whose sad eyes never left the island, and felt a stab of guilt. Leaving felt wrong, like abandoning Bilal. But the men were scared, and Ollie was just a boy. What could he do alone? The boat reached the village shore, and the men climbed out, tying it to a post. The villagers waited, their lanterns flickering like fireflies. "Anything?" Ollie's mother called, her voice sharp with worry. Riemann shook his head, just his hat and shoe, blood too. "Something's out there." Whispers spread through the crowd, fearful, quick, like dry leaves in the wind. Fatima hobbled forward, her cane tapping. "Told you, the river's curse. You'll see." Ollie glared at her, tears burning his eyes. "He's not dead," he shouted, clutching Bilal's things. "Shiru knows he's alive." His mother pulled him close, but he wriggled free. "I'm staying with Shiru," he said, his chipped tooth flashing as he spoke. She sighed, too tired to fight, and nodded. The villagers drifted back to their homes, their lanterns fading into the dark, but Shiru didn't follow. He ran back to the riverbank near the house, planting his paws in the mud, barking again, hoarse, desperate, a sound that tore at Ollie's heart. "I'm not leaving him," Ollie told Riemann, who frowned, but didn't argue. "Be careful, boy," the blacksmith said, then walked away with the others. Night fell fast, heavy and black. The sky was moonless, the stars hidden by clouds, and the river roared louder, its voice filling the silence. Ollie sat beside Shiru, his lantern glowing weakly on the ground. The cold seeped through his thin shirt, but he didn't care. He pulled Bilal's shawl around his shoulders, breathing in the faint smell of smoke and sweat, Bilal's smell. "We'll find you, uncle," he whispered, his voice shaking. Shiru whined, pawing at the mud, his barks turning into cries, like he was begging the river to give Bilal back. Hours passed. The village went quiet, the lights in the houses winking out one by one. Ollie's eyes grew heavy, but he fought sleep, rubbing them with muddy hands. Shiru didn't stop, his small body swayed, exhausted, but he kept barking, his voice cracking, like brittle wood. Ollie reached out, stroking his fur. "You're the best, Shiru," he said, tears slipping down his cheeks. "You don't give up." The dog leaned into him, whimpering, then barked again, louder, his gaze locked on the water. Then Ollie heard it, a sound that wasn't the river. A low wet growl, deep and close, rolling across the waves. His heart stopped, he grabbed a stick from the ground, his hands shaking, and stood. "Who's there?" he called, his voice small in the dark. Shiru's barks turned sharp, frantic, his fur standing up. Ollie swung the lantern toward the river, its light trembling on the water. Something moved, big, dark, just under the surface. Ripples spread fast and wide, like a stone had dropped, but there was no splash. "Uncle?" Ollie shouted, stepping closer, hope and fear twisting in his chest. The growl came again, louder, and Shiru lunged forward, barking so hard his body shook. Ollie's stick felt useless, a twig against whatever was out there. He swung the lantern again, and for a moment he saw it. Two yellow eyes, glowing like coals, staring from the water. They weren't human, they weren't anything he knew. His breath caught, his legs froze. "Shiru, get back," he yelled, but the dog didn't listen. He stood at the edge, growling, protecting Ollie, like he'd always protected Bilal. The water churned, black and angry, and the eyes sank below the surface. Silence fell, heavy and wrong, broken only by Shiru's ragged barks. Ollie's heart pounded, his stick raised, his lantern shaking in his hand. "What was that?" he whispered, his voice lost in the roar of the river. Shiru whined, then barked again, a cry that sounded like pain. Ollie dropped to his knees beside him, wrapping an arm around the dog's trembling body. "It's okay, boy," he lied, his own tears falling into Shiru's fur. "We're okay," but they weren't. The river was awake, alive with something horrible, and those eyes, those glowing awful eyes, knew they were there. Ali clutched Bilal's shawl tighter, his mind racing. Was that thing what took Uncle? Was it still out there, waiting? Shiru's barks grew weaker, his small frame slumping against Ali, but he wouldn't stop. He couldn't. He was calling for Bilal, loyal to the end, even as the night closed in, and the river growled back. Ali held him close, the stick forgotten, the lantern flickering low. The cold bit at his skin, the dark pressed against his eyes, and the fear sank deep into his bones. They were alone now, just a boy and a dog, against something they couldn't fight. But Shiru's barks, broken and brave, kept going, a light in the horrible night, pulling Ali forward, even as the river waited, patient and cruel, for its next move. The night hung heavy over the riverbank, the air cold and thick with mist. Ali knelt in the mud, his arm around Shiru, the little dog's trembling body, pressed against him. The lantern flickered weakly, its light barely touching the black water that roared in front of them. Shiru's barks had turned hoarse, his voice breaking with every cry, but he wouldn't stop. Those yellow eyes Ali had seen, glowing horrible, were gone, sunk back into the river, but the memory of them burned in his mind. His stick lay useless beside him, his small hands clutching Bilal's shawl instead. He was scared, more scared than he'd ever been, but Shiru's courage kept him there. The river growled again, a low wet sound that vibrated through the ground. Ali's heart raced. "Shiru, we should go," he whispered, his voice shaking. But the dog didn't move. He stared at the water, his sad eyes wide, his growls mixing with whines. Then, without warning, the surface exploded. Water shot up in a violent spray, soaking Ali and Shiru, and something rose from the depths, tall, slimy and wrong. Ali screamed, scrambling back, his lantern tipping over into the mud. It wasn't human. It was a monster, long arms dripping with river muck, skin like wet scales, black and glistening. Its head was crooked, too big, with jagged teeth poking from a gaping mouth. Those yellow eyes glowed brighter now, locked on Ali and Shiru, unblinking and cruel. In its claws, it held something. Bilal's jacket, the old brown one he wore every winter, torn and dripping. Ali's breath stopped. "Uncle," he shouted, his voice cracking with hope and terror. Shiru lunged, barking so loud, it hurt Ali's ears. The little dog charged the monster, teeth bared, fearless despite his size. He bit at its leg, sinking his jaws into the slimy flesh. The creature roared, a horrible, gurgling sound that shook the air, and swatted Shiru away with one long arm. The dog yelped, tumbling into the mud, his small body rolling hard against the ground. "Shiru," Ali cried, running to him, but the monster turned, its glowing eyes fixing on him now. Ali froze, his feet stuck in the mud, his heart pounding like a drum. The creature stepped closer, its claws dragging Bilal's jacket through the water. It rasped, its voice like rocks grinding together. "He's mine now." The words sank into Ali's chest, cold and heavy. "No," he yelled, grabbing his stick from the ground. He swung it with all his strength, hitting the monster's arm. The stick snapped in half, useless, and the creature laughed, a wet, choking sound that made Ali's skin crawl. It lunged, faster than he expected, and grabbed him. Its claws wrapped around his arm, cold and slimy, pulling him toward the water. Ali screamed, kicking and thrashing, his free hand clawing at the mud. "Let me go," he sobbed, tears streaming down his face. The monster's grip tightened, its yellow eyes boring into him, and he felt the river's edge under his feet. He was going to die, he knew it. Bilal was gone, and now it would take him too. Then Shiru was back. The little dog staggered to his feet, blood matting his fur, and charged again. He leaped, sinking his teeth into the monster's leg once more, deeper this time. The creature roared, its grip on Ali loosening as it flailed. "Shiru, no," Ali shouted, but the dog wouldn't stop. He growled and bit, shaking his head like he could tear the monster apart. The creature swung its arm, claws slashing, and Shiru yelped again, flying back into the shallows with a splash. Ali fell free, landing hard in the mud. He crawled to Shiru, his hands slipping as he pulled the dog out of the water. "Shiru, please," he begged, cradling him. The dog's eyes were half open, his breathing shallow, blood trickling from a cut on his side. But he whimpered, licking Ali's hand, still alive. The monster hissed, stepping back, its long arms dragging in the river. "Mine," it rasped again, holding up Bilal's jacket like a prize. Then it sank, slow and deliberate, the water swallowing it whole. The yellow eyes glowed under the surface for a moment, then vanished. Ali held Shiru tight, sobbing into his wet fur. "You saved me," he whispered, his voice broken. The lantern was out, the dark closing in, but he didn't care. Shiru's small body shook, his whines soft and weak. Ali looked at the river, the jacket gone, the monster gone, and felt a hole open in his chest. "Uncle," he said, tears mixing with the mud on his face. He didn't know if Bilal was alive or dead, but that thing, that horrible thing had him, or had taken him, and Shiru had fought to stop it. The night was silent now, the river's roar softer, like it was satisfied. Ali sat there, rocking Shiru, his mind spinning. The monster's words echoed, "He's mine now." Did that mean Bilal was still out there, trapped somewhere, or was he gone forever, lost to the river's curse? Ali didn't know, but Shiru's fight gave him a flicker of hope, small and fragile, buried under the fear and pain. He wiped his face, smearing mud and tears, and stood, lifting Shiru in his arms. The dog was heavy, limp, but his chest rose and fell, faint but steady. "We're not done," Ali said, his voice trembling but fierce. "We'll find him, Shiru, I promise." He staggered back toward the village, the river at his back, its dark water, whispering secrets he couldn't hear. The monster was real, not a story, and it had Bilal. But Shiru had faced it, brave, loyal Shiru, and Ali wouldn't let that be for nothing. The houses loomed ahead, dark and quiet, as Ali carried Shiru home. His legs shook, his arms ached, but he kept going, step by step. The night wasn't over, and neither was their fight. The river had shown its face, horrible, cruel, alive, and Ali knew it wasn't done with them. But neither was he. Not yet. The night hung heavy over the riverbank, the air cold and thick with mist. Ali knelt in the mud, his arm around Shiru, the little dog's trembling body pressed against him. The lantern flickered weakly, its light barely touching the black water that roared in front of them. Shiru's barks had turned hoarse, his voice breaking with every cry, but he wouldn't stop. Those yellow eyes Ali had seen, glowing horrible, were gone, sunk back into the river, but the memory of them burned in his mind. His stick lay useless beside him, his small hands clutching Bilal's shawl instead. He was scared, more scared than he'd ever been, but Shiru's courage kept him there. The river growled again, a low, wet sound that vibrated through the ground. Ali's heart raced. "Shiru, we should go," he whispered, his voice shaking, but the dog didn't move. He stared at the water, his sad eyes wide, his growls mixing with whines. Then, without warning, the surface exploded. Water shot up in a violent spray, soaking Ali and Shiru, and something rose from the depths, tall, slimy and wrong. Ali screamed, scrambling back, his lantern tipping over into the mud. It wasn't human. It was a monster, long arms dripping with river muck, skin like wet scales, black and glistening. Its head was crooked, too big, with jagged teeth poking from a gaping mouth. Those yellow eyes glowed brighter now, locked on Ali and Shiru, unblinking and cruel. In its claws, it held something. Bilal's jacket, the old brown one he wore every winter, torn and dripping. Ali's breath stopped. "Uncle," he shouted, his voice cracking with hope and terror. Shiru lunged, barking so loud it hurt Ali's ears. The little dog charged the monster, teeth bared, fearless despite his size. He bit at its leg, sinking his jaws into the slimy flesh. The creature roared, a horrible gurgling sound that shook the air, and swatted Shiru away with one long arm. The dog yelped, tumbling into the mud, his small body rolling hard against the ground. "Shiru," Ali cried, running to him, but the monster turned, its glowing eyes fixing on him now. Ali froze, his feet stuck in the mud, his heart pounding like a drum. The creature stepped closer, its claws dragging Bilal's jacket through the water. It rasped, its voice like rocks grinding together. "He's mine now." The words sank into Ali's chest, cold and heavy. "No," he yelled, grabbing his stick from the ground. He swung it with all his strength, hitting the monster's arm. The stick snapped in half, useless, and the creature laughed, a wet choking sound that made Ali's skin crawl. It lunged, faster than he expected, and grabbed him. Its claws wrapped around his arm, cold and slimy, pulling him toward the water. Ali screamed, kicking and thrashing, his free hand clawing at the mud. "Let me go," he sobbed, tears streaming down his face. The monster's grip tightened, its yellow eyes boring into him, and he felt the river's edge under his feet. He was going to die, he knew it. Bilal was gone, and now it would take him too. Then Shiru was back. The little dog staggered to his feet, blood matting his fur, and charged again. He leaped, sinking his teeth into the monster's leg once more, deeper this time. The creature roared, its grip on Ali loosening as it flailed. "Shiru, no," Ali shouted, but the dog wouldn't stop. He growled and bit, shaking his head like he could tear the monster apart. The creature swung its arm, claws slashing, and Shiru yelped again, flying back into the shallows, with a splash. Ali fell free, landing hard in the mud. He crawled to Shiru, his hands slipping as he pulled the dog out of the water. "Shiru, please," he begged, cradling him. The dog's eyes were half open, his breathing shallow, blood trickling from a cut on his side. But he whimpered, licking Ali's hand, still alive. The monster hissed, stepping back, its long arms dragging in the river. "Mine," it rasped again, holding up Bilal's jacket like a prize. Then it sank, slow and deliberate, the water swallowing it whole. The yellow eyes glowed under the surface for a moment, then vanished. Ali held Shiru tight, sobbing into his wet fur. "You saved me," he whispered, his voice broken. The lantern was out, the dark closing in, but he didn't care. Shiru's small body shook, his whines soft and weak. Ali looked at the river, the jacket gone, the monster gone, and felt a hole open in his chest. "Uncle," he said, tears mixing with the mud on his face. He didn't know if Bilal was alive or dead, but that thing, that horrible thing had him, or had taken him, and Shiru had fought to stop it. The night was silent now, the river's roar softer, like it was satisfied. Ali sat there, rocking Shiru, his mind spinning. The monster's words echoed, "He's mine now." Did that mean Bilal was still out there, trapped somewhere, or was he gone forever, lost to the river's curse? Ali didn't know, but Shiru's fight gave him a flicker of hope, small and fragile, buried under the fear and pain. He wiped his face, smearing mud and tears, and stood, lifting Shiru in his arms. The dog was heavy, limp, but his chest rose and fell, faint but steady. "We're not done," Ali said, his voice trembling but fierce. "We'll find him, Shiru, I promise." He staggered back toward the village, the river at his back, its dark water whispering secrets he couldn't hear. The monster was real, not a story, and it had Bilal, but Shiru had faced it, brave, loyal Shiru, and Ali wouldn't let that be for nothing. The houses loomed ahead, dark and quiet, as Ali carried Shiru home. His legs shook, his arms ached, but he kept going, step by step. The night wasn't over, and neither was their fight. The river had shown its face, horrible, cruel, alive, and Ali knew it wasn't done with them. But neither was he, not yet.